Captain Nara looked out at the stars through the viewport of her ship. The peaceful dawn moved slowly through space near a small planet called Verdania 7. Her crew was busy studying the plants and animals on the planet below. They had been here for 3 weeks, and everything was going well. Nara was a Cathani, a bird-like species known for being peaceful explorers. Her feathers were a soft blue color, and her large eyes could see many colors that other species could not. She loved her job as a research captain. There was nothing better than discovering new life forms and learning about how they lived. The 12 scientists on her ship were excited about their work. They had found several new types of plants that could help cure diseases. Dr. Kiro, her chief scientist, had just discovered a small animal that could change colors like a rainbow. Everyone was happy and focused on their research. Yuki, the communications officer, sat at her station reading reports from other research ships. She was young for a Cathani, with bright yellow feathers around her neck. She enjoyed talking to other ships and sharing news about new discoveries. Today had been quiet, with only routine messages coming through. The peaceful day ended without warning. Space around the peaceful dawn suddenly filled with massive ships. They appeared so fast that the sensors barely had time to register them. Nara's heart stopped as she counted the vessels. 47 ships, each one larger than her small research vessel. These were not friendly visitors. The ships were dark gray and covered with weapons. Nara recognized them immediately. Vorthan Empire Death Fleet. Her worst nightmare had just become real. The Vorthans were an insect-like species that conquered other races and made them slaves. They were known across the galaxy for their cruelty. They did not destroy planets. Instead, they captured everyone living there and forced them to work in terrible conditions. The largest Vorthan ship sent a message. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking in the common galactic language. Peaceful Dawn, you will surrender immediately. Do not resist. We will take you for questioning and processing. Nara's hands shook as she grabbed the communication device. We are peaceful researchers. We have done nothing wrong. Please let us continue our work. The Vorthan voice laughed, a sound like metal, scraping against metal. All species serve the Empire. Resistance is pointless. Prepare to be boarded. The Vorthan ships opened fire. Red energy beams struck the peaceful Dawn's shields. The small research ship was not built for fighting. Her shields were weak and designed only to protect against space rocks and radiation. Sparks flew from control panels as the ship shook violently. The lights flickered on and off. Dr. Kiro ran to the bridge, his feathers standing up in fear. Captain, the science labs are taking damage. We're losing power to the research equipment. Nara tried to think clearly despite her terror. Her ship could not fight these monsters. They had no weapons except small mining lasers used for taking rock samples. The peaceful Dawn could not run either. Vorthan's ships were much faster than a research vessel. Yuki, Nara called to her communications officer. Send out a distress call on all frequencies. Tell everyone what is happening here. Yuki's feathers were gray with fear, but she nodded and began working at her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she prepared the emergency message. She included their location, the number of enemy ships, and a request for any help that might be available. The ship shook again as more Vorthan weapons hit their shields. Warning alarms sounded throughout the vessel. The shield strength was dropping fast. They had maybe 10 minutes before the Vorthans would break through. In her panic, Yuki made a mistake that would change everything. As she sent the distress call to all the usual frequencies used by peaceful species, she accidentally included one more. The computer database showed it as belonging to something called Deathworlders, with a warning that said, "Approach with extreme caution." Yuki did not stop to think about what Deathworlders might be. She was too scared to pay attention to warnings. She just wanted someone, anyone, to help them. She sent the message to every frequency in the database, including the one marked as dangerous. The message went out into space at the speed of light. It told anyone listening that peaceful researchers were under attack by Vorthan slavers near Verdania 7. It asked for immediate help from any ships in the area. The peaceful Dawn's shields finally failed. Vorthan boarding pods launched from the enemy ships like metal bullets. They slammed into the hull of the research vessel with loud, crashing sounds. Soon, the sound of cutting tools could be heard as the Vorthons began breaking through the ship's walls. Nara gathered her crew in the main lab. They hugged each other and tried to stay brave. They all knew what happened to people captured by the Vorthons. Best case, they would spend the rest of their lives as slaves. Worst case, they would be used for terrible experiments. The wall exploded inward. Smoke filled the room as Vorthon soldiers poured through the hole. They looked like giant ants walking on two legs, with 4 arms each holding different weapons. Their black eyes showed no emotion as they pointed their guns at the terrified researchers. "Do not move," one of the soldiers said in a voice that sounded like clicking insects. "You are now property of the Vorthon Empire. Resistance will result in pain." Nara stepped forward, trying to protect her crew. "We are peaceful people. We study plants and animals. We have never hurt anyone." The Vorthon soldier looked at her with what might have been amusement. "Your peaceful nature makes you perfect slaves. You will work in our research facilities until you die. Your knowledge will serve the Empire." The soldiers forced the crew into metal containers that had been brought from the boarding pods. The containers were small and uncomfortable, clearly designed to transport prisoners rather than guests. As they were loaded onto the Vorthon ships, Nara could only hope that someone had received their distress call. She had no way of knowing that her message had reached a species that the galaxy feared more than the Vorthons. Somewhere in space, beings from a planet so dangerous that most aliens could not survive, they were reading her call for help. The humans had received the message, and they were not happy about what they had read. Nara sat in her metal prison, listening to the sounds of the Vorthon ship preparing to leave. She thought about her research, her crew, and all the discoveries they would never make. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about what the future would bring. Above her, in the command center of the Vorthon flagship, Fleet Admiral Crix was pleased with how easy this capture had been. The bird people had not even tried to fight. They would make excellent slaves for the Empire's research projects. Crix did not know that the small research ship had sent out a distress call. Even if he had known, he would not have been worried. What could possibly challenge the might of 47 Vorthon warships? He was about to find out exactly what Deathworlders could do when someone threatened innocent people. Admiral Deho was drinking his morning coffee when the alien distress call came in. He sat in the command center of Terra Defense Station Alpha, a massive space station that orbited Earth's moon. The station was the heart of human military operations in this part of the galaxy. The translation computers worked hard to decode the message. It took several minutes to turn the alien language into words that humans could understand. When the translation finished, Deho set down his coffee cup and read the message twice. "Commander Sujin," he called to his second in command. "Come look at this." Sujin walked over to his desk. She was a small woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been in charge of the Rapid Response Division for 5 years and had never seen a situation she could not handle. She read the message on Deho's screen. "Peaceful researchers under attack by slavers. 47 enemy ships, requesting immediate assistance." She looked up at the Admiral. "Sir, this came from outside human space. Way outside." Deho nodded. "The location is 3 days away at maximum speed. By the time we get there, these researchers will probably be dead or captured." Sujin studied the star charts on the wall. "We could send the 5th Fleet. They're closest to that area. Maybe 10 ships could make it there in time to help." Most military commanders would have agreed with Sujin's suggestion. 10 ships was a reasonable response to an emergency outside their territory. It showed good intentions without risking too much. Any other species in the galaxy would have sent a small task force and hoped for the best. But humans were not like other species. Deho stood up and walked to the large window that looked out at Earth. The blue and white planet turned slowly, below them, peaceful and beautiful. It was hard to believe that this pretty world was classified as a Class 12 death world by the galactic community. Earth was considered one of the most dangerous planets in known space. The gravity was too strong for most aliens. The weather was violent and unpredictable. The native life forms were aggressive and adaptable. Most alien species could not survive on Earth's surface for more than a few hours. But humans had evolved here. They were shaped by this dangerous world into something that most aliens found terrifying. Humans were strong, fast, and incredibly difficult to kill. They worked together in ways that other species found impossible to understand. Most importantly, they had a strange habit of helping others, even when it was dangerous or costly. Su-Jin, Daeho said, still looking at Earth. What is Protocol 7? Su-Jin's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was the total response order. It meant sending everything available to deal with a threat. Most commanders used it only when Earth itself was in danger. Sir, Protocol 7 mobilizes all available ships in 3 sectors. That's more than 200 vessels. Are you sure we need that much force for a rescue mission? Daeho turned back to face her. His expression was serious and determined. Someone sent us a distress call. They asked for help. They're peaceful researchers being attacked by slavers. What do you think we should do? Su-Jin understood immediately. This was not about military strategy or political advantage. This was about human nature. Someone was in trouble and humans helped people in trouble. It was that simple. I'll send the activation orders right away, sir. Across human space, military commanders received their orders. The message was short and clear. Peaceful aliens under attack by slavers. All available ships to respond immediately. Protocol 7 authorized. Captain, Bo-Ram was training her crew on the dreadnought Indomitable Fury when the order came through. She was a veteran of 12 major battles and had never lost a fight. Her ship was one of the most powerful in the human fleet, armed with railguns that could punch holes through mountains. Navigation, she called out. Set course for Verdania 7. Maximum speed. Weapons. Begin charging all systems. Communications. Send a message to the fleet. Tell them the Fury is on the way. Captain Yun-Ki received his orders while on shore leave with his family. He commanded the carrier Storm's Edge, a massive ship that carried 300 fighter aircraft and their pilots. He kissed his wife goodbye and promised to be back soon. Emergency launch, he ordered as soon as he reached his ship. All fighters prep for immediate deployment. I want us in space in 30 minutes. All across human territory. The same scene, played out. Ship captains cut short their missions and headed for the Verdania system. Crews worked around the clock to prepare their vessels for battle. Supply ships loaded extra ammunition and medical supplies. The response was massive and immediate. Humans did not ask who the aliens were or whether they deserved help. They did not worry about the cost or the risk. Someone had sent a distress call, and that was enough. Admiral Daeho watched the fleet reports come in. 237. Ships were heading to Verdania 7. Battleships, destroyers, carriers, cruisers, and support vessels. It was enough firepower to conquer a small empire. Sir, Su-Jin said, looking at the numbers, this might be overkill. We're sending our entire regional fleet to help a few alien researchers. Daeho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found someone hurting innocent people. Su-Jin, do you know what the galaxy calls us? Deathworlders, sir. That's right. And do you know why? Su-Jin nodded. Because we come from a world that would kill most aliens. In minutes, exactly. And what do you think creatures from a death world do when someone threatens peaceful researchers? Su-Jin understood. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. They were about to discover that beings from death worlds did not make threats. They made promises. The fleet began jumping to hyperspace. Each ship disappeared in a flash of light as it entered the faster-than-light tunnel that would carry it to Verdania 7. The journey would take 3 days at maximum speed. Admiral Daeho hoped they would arrive in time to help the researchers. But even if they were too late to save them, the humans would make sure that the slavers paid for what they had done. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world. Meanwhile, at Terra Defense Station Alpha, the computers continued to monitor alien frequencies. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy about Vorthon slaving operations. It seemed that the attack on the researchers was just one of many crimes the Vorthons had committed. Daeho read these reports with growing anger. The Vorthons had been terrorizing peaceful species for years. They captured entire populations and forced them to work as slaves. They destroyed families and cultures without any thought for the suffering they caused. Su-Jin, he said, Send a message to the fleet commanders. Tell them that this might be bigger than just a rescue mission. We may need to teach the Vorthons a lesson about picking on peaceful people. Sujin nodded and began typing the message. She knew that look in the Admiral's eyes. It was the same look that human soldiers had worn throughout history when they faced bullies and tyrants. It was the look of someone who had decided that enough was enough. The human fleet raced through hyperspace toward Verdania 7. In 3 days, the Vorthans would discover what happened when Deathworlders decided to protect innocent people. They were about to learn that humans did not fight fair. They did not show mercy to slavers, and they never, ever left anyone behind. The galaxy was about to change forever. 3 days after capturing the Peaceful Dawn, Fleet Admiral Crix was pleased with his success. The Vorthon Death Fleet had taken 12 ships full of slaves from the Verdania system. The bird people had been easy to capture, and their scientific knowledge would be valuable to the Empire. Crix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Hope. Through the large windows, he could see his other ships loading the last of the prisoners. The operation had gone perfectly. No resistance, no losses, and plenty of new slaves for the Empire's research facilities. The Vorthons did not know that their victims had sent a distress call. Even if they had known, Crix would not have been worried. 47 warships was more than enough to handle any threat in this part of the galaxy. Most species could barely manage to build 10 ships, let alone fight the mighty Vorthon Empire. Captain Nara sat in a prison cell aboard the Destroyer of Hope. The metal walls were cold, and the air smelled like chemicals. She could hear her crew, members crying in other cells nearby. They had been separated from each other and given only water and thin soup to eat. A Vorthon guard had told her that they would reach the slave processing facility in 2 days. There they would be tested to see what kind of work they could do. Scientists like Nara would probably be forced to develop new weapons for the Empire. Others would be sent to mining colonies or factory worlds. Nara tried to stay strong for her crew, but she felt hopeless. No one knew where they were. No one was coming to help them. The Vorthons had won, just like they always did. Then space began to tear open. The first human ship to arrive was a destroyer called the Thunderstrike. It appeared suddenly, emerging from hyperspace in a flash of blue light. The Vorthan's sensors detected it immediately, but the operators were not worried. One ship against their entire fleet was not a threat. But then another ship appeared, and another, and another. Captain Boram's dreadnought Indomitable Fury emerged from hyperspace like an angry giant. The massive ship was 3 times larger than the biggest Vorthon vessel, covered with railgun turrets and missile launchers. Its armor was thick enough to stop anything the Vorthons could shoot at it. More ships kept arriving. Captain Hyun Keys, Carrier Storm's Edge, brought 300 fighters with it. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels filled the space around Verdania 7. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Vorthon fleet. Crix watched in growing horror as the human ships continued to appear. His officers counted them out loud. 50 ships, 100 ships, 150 ships. The numbers kept climbing until no one could keep track anymore. "How many are there?" Crix demanded. His sensor officer was shaking as he read the displays. "Sir, I count 237 vessels. All of them are warships. All of them are targeting us." Crix could not believe what he was seeing. No species in the galaxy could field this many ships for a simple rescue mission. The humans had brought enough firepower to conquer an entire star system. For what? To save a few bird people researchers? On the Indomitable Fury, Captain Boram studied the tactical display. The Vorthans were clearly surprised by the size of the human response. Their ships were scattered and unprepared for battle. This would be easier than expected. "Communications," she ordered. "Open a channel to all Vorthon vessels." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Boram's voice was calm and professional as she spoke to the alien slavers. But there was something in her tone that made even her own crew shiver. It was the voice of a predator who had found her prey. "This is Captain Boram of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have attacked peaceful researchers and taken prisoners. You have exactly 60 seconds to release all captives and surrender, or we will demonstrate why Earth is classified as a death world." The message was sent on all frequencies. Every ship in both fleets heard it clearly. The humans were giving the Vorthons one chance to do the right thing. Crick stared at the communication panel. The human had spoken in perfect galactic standard, but her accent was strange. There was something about the way she said the words that made them sound like a death sentence. He knew about Deathworlders, of course. Most species in the galaxy did. They were creatures that came from planets so dangerous that normal beings could not survive there. The few Deathworlder species that existed were usually avoided by everyone else. But Earth was supposed to be a minor world. The humans had only been in space for 200 years. How could they possibly have built such a massive fleet? "Sir," his weapons officer said nervously, "what are your orders?" Crix thought about his options. He could surrender and face disgrace in the Empire. Or he could fight and probably die. But the Vorthon Empire did not surrender to inferior species. It would set a terrible example. "All ships, prepare to attack," Crix ordered. "We will show these Deathworlders what happens when they challenge the Empire." On the human ships, the response was immediate. Boram's 60-second deadline had expired, and the Vorthons had chosen to fight rather than surrender the prisoners. "All ships," Boram announced to the fleet. "The Vorthons have refused to release the captives. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Protect the prisoners at all costs." What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for centuries. The human attack was unlike anything the Vorthons had ever seen. Instead of the careful, tactical fighting that most species preferred, the humans attacked with overwhelming force and perfect coordination. Captain Hyun Ki's fighters launched from the storm's edge like a swarm of angry insects. They moved faster. Then Vorthon sensors could track, hitting enemy ships with precision strikes that disabled weapons and engines without destroying the vessels completely. The human battleships opened fire with their main guns. Railgun rounds moving at significant fractions of light speed punched through Vorthon shields like they were made of paper. But the humans were careful to target only military systems. They did not want to accidentally hurt the prisoners. Borams. Dreadnought led the charge into the enemy formation. The Indomitable Fury's massive railguns spoke with thunder that could be heard across space. Each shot was calculated to disable rather than destroy. The humans wanted prisoners of their own, for questioning. The most terrifying thing about the human attack was not their weapons or their numbers. It was their willingness to take damage to protect others. When Vorthon ships tried to use the captured researchers as shields, human vessels deliberately moved between the prisoners and enemy fire. The destroyer Thunderstrike took 3 direct hits while protecting a Vorthon transport full of Kethany prisoners. Its captain, Commander Jin Su, kept his ship in position even as armor plating melted under enemy fire. He would not move until every prisoner was safe. Within 4 hours, the entire Vorthon death fleet was either destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship had been lost, though several had taken significant damage while protecting the alien captives. Captain Nara watched the battle through a small window in her cell. She could not believe what she was seeing. The terrifying Vorthon fleet that had seemed so powerful was being torn apart by the human ships like paper dolls in a storm. When the fighting ended, human marines began boarding the Vorthon vessels. Nara heard the sound of cutting tools and explosions as they fought their way through the ship. The Vorthon guards ran away, leaving their prisoners behind. The door to Nara's cell exploded inward. A human soldier stepped through the smoke, wearing powered armor that made him look like a mechanical giant. His helmet had a clear faceplate, and Nara could see his face inside. He was young, maybe 30 years old in human terms. His eyes were kind, and he was smiling as he looked at her. "Are you Captain Nara of the Peaceful Dawn?" he asked in perfect Kethany language. Nara nodded, too shocked to speak. "My name is Sergeant Min Ho," the human said. "We're here to take you home. The battle for the Verdania system was over, but the real demonstration of human military power was just beginning." Captain Boram stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Fury, watching her crew work with calm efficiency to secure the area. The Vorthon fleet was completely defeated. 31 ships had been captured intact, with their crews taken prisoner. 16 ships had been destroyed when they refused to surrender and tried to escape. The humans had lost 0 vessels, though several ships needed repairs. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining Vorthon ships." Boram nodded. "Accept their surrender. Send marine teams to secure all vessels and free any prisoners they might be holding. What impressed Captain Nara most was how the humans treated their prisoners. She had been moved to the human medical ship Mercy's Hand immediately after her rescue. The ship was nothing like she had expected from Deathworlders. Dr. Yunwoo was gentle and patient as she examined Nara's injuries. The human doctor was a small woman with steady hands and a warm smile. She spoke Kathani better than many native speakers. "You were lucky," Dr. Yunwoo said as she treated a cut on Nara's arm. "The Vorthans only had you for 3 days. We've rescued prisoners who were held for months. The psychological damage can be severe." Nara watched the doctor work. "Why did you come? We are not part of your species. This is not your territory." Dr. Yunwoo looked surprised by the question. "You sent a distress call. Someone was hurting you. We helped." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "But you brought your entire fleet. Hundreds of ships for 12 researchers." "Of course we did," Dr. Yunwoo said, applying a bandage to Nara's arm. "How many ships do you think it takes to help someone?" The question bothered Nara. Most species would have sent a small task force, if they sent anything at all. The humans had mobilized an entire armada for people they had never met. On the command ship Terra's Wrath, Commander Sujin was coordinating the aftermath of the battle. Her Marines were boarding every Vorthon vessel to search for prisoners and gather intelligence. The humans worked with a level of organization that amazed the rescued aliens. Each team had specific orders and objectives. Nothing was left to chance. Within 6 hours, every Vorthon ship had been secured and every prisoner had been freed. But the most important work was happening in the interrogation rooms. The humans had captured Fleet Admiral Crix and his senior officers. They wanted to know everything about Vorthon's slaving operations. Technical Officer Min Ho was leading the intelligence gathering. He was a quiet man who spoke softly but had eyes that seemed to see everything. He sat across from Crix in a small room aboard the Terra's Wrath. "Admiral," Minho said politely, "we know that your fleet has attacked other peaceful species. We want to know where the prisoners are being held." Crix looked at the human with hatred in his black eyes. "I will tell you nothing, Deathworlder." Minho smiled sadly. "Admiral, I think you misunderstand the situation. We studied your fleet for 3 days while we traveled here. We know your tactics, your weapons, your communications codes. We know more about your military than you think we do." He touched a control pad, and the room's wall screen lit up. It showed detailed maps of Vorthon space, complete with fleet positions and base locations. "We intercepted all of your communications during the battle," Minho continued. "Your ships talked to each other constantly. They reported their positions, their status, their orders. Our computers decoded everything." Crix stared at the screen in shock. The humans had complete intelligence on 3 sectors of Vorthon space. They knew where every ship was, where every base was located, where the prisoners were being held. "How is this possible?" Crix whispered. "We are very good at gathering information," Minho said. "Now you can help us by confirming what we already know, or you can stay silent. Either way, we will rescue those prisoners." The interrogation revealed the true scope of Vorthon crimes. They had attacked 47 peaceful ships in the past year alone. They were holding over 3,000 prisoners on various slave worlds. They had been operating for decades without anyone strong enough to stop them. Commander Sujin read the intelligence reports with growing anger. The Vorthons had destroyed entire civilizations. They had torn families apart and forced children to work in dangerous mines. They had committed crimes that made her stomach turn. "Minho!" she called over the communication system. "Tell the Admiral that we want the locations of all slave facilities. If he cooperates, he and his officers will be treated according to galactic law. If he refuses, we will find the facilities ourselves and hold him responsible for any prisoners who die while we search." The message was clear. The humans would rescue the prisoners one way or another. Cooperation would save time and lives. Back on the Mercy's Hand, Captain Nara was learning more about human society. Dr. Yunwoo had introduced her to other human officers, and Nara was surprised by their attitudes. Captain Hyun-ki visited her during his off-duty hours. He was a cheerful man who loved to talk about his family back on Earth. He showed Nara pictures of his wife and children, explaining how much he missed them during long missions. Why do you fight? Nara asked him. You could stay home with your family and be safe. Hyunki thought about the question seriously. Because if we don't fight the bad people, who will? There are species out there like the Vorthans who hurt innocent people. Someone has to stop them. But it's dangerous. You could be killed. Yes, Hyunki agreed. But my children will grow up in a galaxy where peaceful people like you can do research without being attacked by slavers. That's worth the risk. Nara was beginning to understand something important about humans. They did not fight for conquest or glory. They fought to protect others. It was built into their nature in a way that most species could not understand. The human rescue operation continued for the next 2 days. Teams of Marines searched every Vorthan ship thoroughly. They found hidden prisoner compartments, secret, weapons, and evidence of other crimes. The most disturbing discovery was made aboard the Vorthon transport Despair Eternal. Hidden in the lower decks, human Marines found a laboratory where Vorthon scientists had been experimenting on captured aliens. Sergeant Jinwoo led the team that found the lab. He was a veteran Marine who had seen many terrible things, but the sight of the torture devices made him angry in a way that surprised him. Commander Soo-jin, he reported over the radio. You need to see this. The Vorthons have been doing medical experiments on prisoners. Soo-jin arrived at the lab within minutes. What she saw there made her decision for her. The Vorthans were not just slavers, they were monsters who enjoyed causing pain. Seal this area, she ordered. Document everything. We'll need evidence when we turn these criminals over to the galactic authorities. But Soo-jin was already planning something more immediate than a trial. The humans had found detailed records of every Vorthon slave facility in 3 sectors. They knew where thousands of prisoners were being held. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Dae-ho back at Terra Defense Station Alpha. Admiral, she said, we've completed the rescue operation here, but we've discovered something bigger. The Vorthons are running a slavery network that spans multiple sectors. We have the locations of all their facilities. Dae-ho's response was immediate. What do you need, Commander? Permission to liberate every slave facility in Vorthon space, Soo-jin said. We have enough ships here to hit all their major bases simultaneously. There was a pause while Dae-ho considered the request. What Soo-jin was proposing was essentially a war against the entire Vorthon Empire. It would be the largest military operation in human history. Permission granted, Dae-ho said finally. Bring our people home, Commander. All of them. The human fleet began to reorganize. Instead of returning to Earth, they would continue their mission. They would not stop until every prison was opened and every slaver was defeated. Captain Nara watched the preparations from the medical bay. The humans worked with a purpose that was both inspiring and terrifying. They had seen evil, and they were going to destroy it completely. Doctor, she said to Yunwoo, are your people always like this? Dr. Yunwoo looked out at the busy flight deck where fighters were being prepared for the next phase of operations. Like what? She asked, so determined to help others, even when it's dangerous. Dr. Yunwoo smiled. Captain, we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned that the only way to survive was to take care of each other. That instinct doesn't go away just because we're in space now. Nara understood. The humans were not just warriors. They were protectors, and they would not rest until everyone in the galaxy was safe from predators like the Vorthans. News of the human response to the Verdania incident spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every major spacefaring species had heard the story. A small research ship had sent a distress call, and the humans had responded with an entire war fleet. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 43 species gathered on the neutral world of Kepler Station to discuss what this meant for the balance of power in their part of space. Ambassador Vec of the Altarian Republic stood at the speaking podium, his blue skin pale with worry. Fellow council members, we must reconsider our assumptions about the human species. They have demonstrated military capabilities far beyond what we believed possible. The council chamber buzzed with nervous conversation. Most species had classified humans as a minor power, barely worth attention. They were newcomers to space, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. How could they have built such a massive fleet so quickly? Senator Kix of the hegemony raised one of her 4 arms to speak. The reports say they brought over 200 ships to rescue 12 researchers. This is not normal behavior. What species commits such resources to help strangers? Admiral Zorn of the Confederation military forces had studied the battle reports carefully. It's not just the numbers that concern me, it's their tactical doctrine. They attacked with overwhelming force, but they were careful to minimize casualties among both prisoners and enemies. This suggests they have experience with rescue operations. The truth was more disturbing than the council members realized. The humans had not built their fleet specifically to fight aliens. They had built it to fight each other. Earth's history was filled with wars and conflicts. Humans had been fighting for thousands of years before they reached space. When they finally achieved interstellar travel, they brought their military knowledge with them. The human fleet that had destroyed the Vorthons was designed based on centuries of warfare experience. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic had been tested in combat against other humans. Fighting aliens was actually easier than what they were used to. Back in the Verdania system, Captain Nara was beginning to understand the scope of human military operations. She had been transferred to the command ship Terra's Wrath, so she could observe how the humans coordinated their next moves. Commander Su-Jin showed her the tactical displays that covered an entire wall of the command center. Each screen showed a different Vorthan slave facility, complete with guard ships, defensive systems, and estimated prisoner populations. We've identified 67 facilities in 3 sectors, Su-Jin explained. Some are mining colonies with a few hundred prisoners. Others are major processing centers with tens of thousands of slaves. Nara stared at the numbers in horror. There are that many prisoners? According to the intelligence we gathered from Admiral Crix, yes. The Vorthons have been operating this network for over 30 years. The scale of Vorthon crimes was staggering. They had enslaved entire species, destroyed civilizations, and committed genocide against anyone who resisted them. And they had done it all while the rest of the galaxy looked the other way. What will you do? Nara asked. Su-Jin's expression was grim but determined. We're going to free them, all of them. The human plan was ambitious beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of attacking the slave facilities one by one, they would hit all of them simultaneously. The fleet would split into smaller task forces, each one assigned to liberate specific targets. Captain Boram gathered her ship commanders for a final briefing. The holographic display in the conference room showed the entire operation, with colored lines indicating attack routes and timing. The key to this operation is coordination, Boram explained. We need to hit every facility at exactly the same time. If the Vorthons realize what's happening, they might kill the prisoners, rather than let them be rescued. Captain Hyun Ki studied the plan carefully. Some of these facilities have significant defenses. The mining colony at Torval 9 has 20 guard ships. That's why we're sending the Storm's Edge and her fighter squadrons to handle Torval 9, Boram replied. Your pilots are the best in the fleet. 20 guard ships won't be a problem. The briefing continued for 3 hours, as the commanders discussed every detail of the operation. The humans left nothing to chance. Every possible complication had been considered and planned for. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Deho was dealing with the political consequences of the human response. The Galactic Council had sent an official message asking for an explanation of human actions in the Verdania system. Ambassador So Young, Earth's first director of interspecies relations, read the message aloud in Deho's office. The Council is concerned about the aggressive nature of the human response to what they call a minor incident. Deho laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Minor incident? 47 ships attacking peaceful researchers is a minor incident? They're worried that we're too quick to use military force, So Young continued. They want assurances that Earth will not interfere in matters outside human space. And what did you tell them? So Young smiled. I told them that Earth extends its protection to any peaceful species that requests our help. Pirates, slavers, and conquerors operating anywhere in our monitored space will face the full weight of human military response. The message was clear. Earth had declared itself the protector of innocent species throughout their region of the galaxy. Anyone who attacked peaceful people would have to deal with human forces. The political implications were enormous. For the first time in galactic history, a single species had claimed responsibility for maintaining peace across multiple sectors. Most council members thought the humans were either insane or incredibly arrogant. But the Vorthon Empire understood exactly what the message meant. Emperor Vorth himself sent an urgent communication to all Vorthon forces, ordering them to avoid any contact with human ships or human-protected species. The Emperor was a cruel and intelligent leader who had built his empire through careful calculation of risks and benefits. He recognized that the humans represented a threat unlike anything the Vorthons had faced before. The problem was that the Emperor's orders came too late. The human fleet was already moving to attack every Vorthon facility simultaneously. Captain, Nara watched the final preparations from the bridge of the Terra's Wrath. Human ships were departing in small groups, each one heading to a different target. The coordination required was incredible, but the humans made it look easy. "Commander Sujin," she said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course, Captain. Why are you doing this? These prisoners are not your people. You don't owe them anything." Sujin was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. "Captain Nara, my grandmother used to tell me stories about Earth's history. She told me about times when bad people hurt innocent families, and good people stood by and did nothing because it wasn't their problem." She turned to look at Nara, directly. "My grandmother made me promise that if I ever had the power to help someone, I would never stand by and do nothing. Today, I have the power to help, so I'm helping." The last human ship departed for its target. In 12 hours, the largest rescue operation in galactic history would begin. 67 Vorthon facilities would be attacked simultaneously by human forces. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans made a promise to protect innocent people, they kept that promise no matter what the cost. Emperor Vorth received word of the human fleet movements just as the attacks began. His military advisors told him that it was impossible for any species to coordinate such a massive operation across 3 sectors. They were wrong. The humans had done the impossible, and they were about to free every slave in Vorthon space. The age of Vorthon terror was ending. The age of human protection was beginning. 6 months after the Verdania incident, Captain Nara found herself standing on the observation deck of New Horizons, Earth's first diplomatic station. The massive structure orbited the human homeworld, serving as a meeting place for dozens of alien species who wanted to establish relationships with humanity. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Nara could see Earth turning slowly below. The blue and white planet looked peaceful and beautiful, nothing like the terrifying Deathworld that most aliens imagined. It was hard to believe that this pretty world had produced the warriors who had changed the galaxy forever. The station itself told a story about human nature. Unlike the cold, efficient designs that most spacefaring species preferred, New Horizons incorporated elements of beauty alongside function. Gardens grew in rotating sections, providing fresh air and peaceful spaces for meditation. Art from dozens of worlds decorated the corridors, creating a museum of galactic culture. The humans had designed special areas for different alien physiologies. The aquatic quarter was flooded for species that breathed water. The high-gravity section accommodated beings from heavy worlds. The low-temperature zone housed species that found normal human environments too warm. Ambassador So Young had become one of the most important people in the galaxy. As Earth's Director of Interspecies Relations, she was responsible for managing humanity's relationships with dozens of alien governments. She met with Nara in her office, a comfortable room filled with plants and artwork from many worlds. So Young was a small woman with kind eyes and a gentle manner, but Nara had learned not to underestimate her. She had negotiated peace treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts that had reshaped the political landscape of 3 sectors. "Captain Nara," So Young said with a warm smile, "I'm so glad you could visit us. How are you adjusting to your new position?" Nara had been appointed as the official liaison between the Cathani Research Collective and Human Space Command. It was an important job that involved coordinating joint scientific missions and ensuring that research ships had proper protection. "It's been interesting," Nara replied. "I never imagined I would become a diplomat. I was just a research captain who wanted to study plants and animals." "Sometimes life takes us in directions we don't expect," So Young said. "Your experience gives you unique insights into how humans and other species can work together." The partnership between humans and Cathani had become a model for other alliances. Human ships provided protection for Cathani research vessels, while Cathani scientists shared their discoveries with human researchers. Both species benefited from the arrangement. Captain Boram, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, had established joint patrol routes throughout the region. Her ships worked alongside Cathani exploration vessels, creating a network of protected space where peaceful species could work without fear of attack. The sight of human warships escorting alien research vessels had become common throughout the galaxy. Pirates and slavers had learned to avoid any system where human forces might be present. The Vorthan Empire had been completely transformed by the human intervention. Emperor Vorth, faced with the choice between war and reform, had chosen to change his empire's policies. The massive slave liberation operation had freed over 50,000 prisoners from Vorthan facilities. The emperor had publicly apologized for his empire's crimes and announced a new policy of legitimate trade and cooperation with other species. Whether this change was genuine or simply fear of human retaliation, the result was the same. Vorthan raiding fleets no longer terrorized peaceful worlds. In the New Horizons Conference Center, representatives from 47 species had gathered for the Galactic Peace Summit. The meeting had been organized by Ambassador So Young to discuss new standards for interspecies relations. The central theme of the summit was simple. Strong species had a responsibility to protect weak ones. The humans had demonstrated this principle at Verdania, and now they wanted to formalize it into galactic law. Senator Kix of the Hegemony stood at the speaking podium, addressing the assembled delegates. The human proposal is unprecedented. They want to create a mutual protection agreement that would obligate all members to respond to attacks on peaceful species. The proposal was controversial. Many species were uncomfortable with the idea of military intervention in other systems. They preferred the traditional approach of non-interference in foreign conflicts. But the smaller, weaker species strongly supported the human plan. They had lived in fear of predators like the Vorthans for centuries. The promise of protection from stronger allies offered them hope for a peaceful future. Ambassador So Young took the podium to address the concerns of the reluctant species. We are not asking anyone to become aggressive or to seek conflict. We are simply saying that when innocent people call for help, those who can help should respond. But who decides what constitutes an attack on innocent people? Asked Ambassador Vec of the Altarian Republic. Different species have different concepts of justice and law. So Young had anticipated this question. We propose the creation of an Interspecies Protection Council composed of representatives from all member species. This council would investigate requests for assistance and authorize appropriate responses. The debate continued for 3 days. Species argued about jurisdiction, authority, and the risks of military intervention. But gradually a consensus began to emerge. The smaller species wanted protection. The larger species wanted stability. The humans offered both through their mutual defense proposal. On the final day of the summit, 41 species signed the Galactic Protection Accord. The agreement established the legal framework for collective response to attacks on peaceful civilizations. Commander Sujin, now director of the Human Rapid Response Corps, watched the signing ceremony from the observation gallery. The Corps had become the enforcement arm of the new protection system, with bases established throughout the region. The mere existence of the Rapid Response Corps had changed the behavior of potential aggressors. Piracy in the protected sectors had dropped to almost zero. Slavery operations had become extinct as word spread that humans responded to distress calls with overwhelming force. But the most important change was in the attitudes of peaceful species. For the first time in galactic history, researchers, explorers, and traders could work without constant fear of attack. Captain Nara returned to her duties with a new sense of purpose. Her research ship, now equipped with advanced human communication systems, could call for help instantly if needed. But more importantly, she knew that help would actually come. She often thought about that desperate day when she had sent a distress call to unknown deathworlders. At the time, she had simply been hoping for someone, anyone, to respond to their emergency. What she had gotten was something the galaxy had never seen before. Friends who would cross the void itself to ensure that. No one fought alone. The partnership between humans and other species continued to grow. Trade routes became safer as human patrols eliminated piracy. Scientific discoveries increased as researchers could explore dangerous regions under human protection. Cultural exchange flourished as species learned to trust each other. The humans, for their part, found their place in the galactic community. They were not conquerors or overlords, but protectors and allies. They had used their strength not to dominate others, but to create a safer galaxy for everyone. Admiral Day-Ho, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Terran Defense Forces, often received reports about the changing nature of the galaxy. Crime rates were down. Interspecies conflicts were being resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Trade and exploration were booming. In his office aboard the new command station orbiting Earth, he kept a small holographic display showing the rescue of Captain Nara from the Vorthan flagship. It reminded him of why the humans had chosen to become protectors rather than conquerors. One day, Captain Hyun-Ki visited him to discuss the expansion of the carrier fleet. As they reviewed construction plans for new ships, Hyun-Ki asked a question that had been bothering him. "Admiral, do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing? Some species think we're too aggressive, too quick to intervene in other people's problems." Day-Ho looked out at Earth, the blue world that had created a species of protectors. "Commander, my daughter is starting school next month. She will grow up in a galaxy where peaceful people can pursue their dreams without fear of being enslaved or murdered." He turned back to Hyun-Ki with a smile. "If that makes us too aggressive, then I'm proud to be too aggressive." The conversation was interrupted by an emergency communication from the Rapid Response Corps. A new distress call had been received from the Outer Rim. Pirates were attacking a colony of peaceful herbivores who had never developed military technology. Admiral Day-Ho authorized the immediate deployment of the Third Fleet. Within hours, 30 human ships would be on their way to help species they had never met before. It had become routine. Someone was in trouble, and humans helped. It was that simple. Captain Nara, now serving as ambassador to the Human Protection Alliance, often spoke to new species about the benefits of joining the protection agreement.